Each week in the Justice Gap, we examine inequitable spaces in our society that we feel like deserve our attention, deserve a conversation. Last week, the Arapahoe County District Attorney's Office declined to charge the officer who shot an unarmed black man in Aurora. The man was 37-year-old Kilyn Lewis. A warrant was out for his arrest for his involvement in a prior shooting. Denver and Aurora police officers tried to arrest him in an apartment parking lot in May after Lewis put his right arm behind his back, then brought his hand around with an object in front of it. Aurora SWAT officer shot him, and he died 2 days later. Now, the object in his hand was his cell phone. Lewis was not armed and no weapons were ever found in the car. Now, this decision to not charge the officer has certainly led to some confusion and some heartbreak in the community, and we just want to take the time to have a conversation really about the legal process of how we got here. And to do that, we're joined by 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor. Thank you for being here. I know when this decision came out last week, I called you and said, we got to talk about this, right? Answer some questions that I think people have. And I want to start from the beginning. When it comes to an indictment from a grand jury, whether they choose to take that or not, what does that look like? How do we get to this point?
Right. Well, the starting place would actually be with the DA, John Kellner, because they can bring charges in Colorado either on his own with a complaint or through the grand jury process with an indictment. And so I read this morning his 20-page report that he issued to the critical incident report team stating why he didn't want to bring charges. And one of the statements he made was that they went before the grand jury and the grand jury decided not to to bring this indictment. So neither he nor the grand jury brought the indictment, and he listed a number of different things how he reached that conclusion because, as you said in the lead-in, Mr. Lewis was wanted for an attempted murder. The weapon hadn't been recovered. The movement like this, according to the DA, that justified the use of lethal force under those circumstances.
Now,
so I'd like to freeze and provide some context on this particular story of my cousin. He never murdered or attempted to murder anybody. They simply went off as his past criminal history. That's the reason why they didn't decide to take up charges against this tyrannical officer. And that's the reason why. Also, these talks about the weapon, them not recovering, reason is because he never had a weapon, ever. He wasn't involved. Actually, it was alleged that the Denver judge signed the affidavit for his arrest to have a warrant issued, and he also signed right where the district attorney's signature was supposed to be. He signed that. The district attorney didn't even know about a warrant. Neither did the chief of police of Denver knew about this particular warrant, and it happened in their city and their county. Figure that. Not only that, remember, the person or the witness or the victim was diagnosed actually legally blind, and several witnesses also that know the victim stated that he was mentally unstable. So you're legally blind, mentally unstable. You cannot positively point out the person who did this to you. So the judge signs a bogus warrant and forges a signature as far as the DA's signature, and the chief of police of Denver doesn't even know about this case. Very, 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 very fishy. My cousin did nothing wrong. He literally died over a cell phone. Literally. A damn cell phone. And justice has not been served to him. Just wanted to provide that context.
Is the DA a neutral party when he's talking in front of a grand jury, right? Is he arguing for one side or the other, or is he just putting the facts out there?
Well, he's really actually presenting, he's prosecuting. So some would say that the grand jury, I mean, it's a lower standard. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a probable cause. And so it's just the DA presenting all the evidence that he or she may want to present. They can bring in witnesses. There could be documentary evidence. And so here, that's apparently the grand jury said no after that. So it's somewhat of a one-sided process. The defendant doesn't get an opportunity to present a case. It's really just the DA presenting these facts and the jury saying, yes, we believe there's probable cause here to move forward.
And I'm curious because, you know, we've done a lot of investigating. 9 News Investigates has dug into this case for the last few months. And this is a bit nuanced, right? This isn't Elijah McClain walking home from a grocery store completely unarmed. This is someone who has a warrant out for their arrest for, you know, attempted first-degree murder.
Right.
Does that play in to the decision here?
Yeah, it's a great question and a great point on that nuance, because Elijah McClain, of course, comes to mind, completely minding his own business, not committing a crime in the least. Here, they were actually trying to arrest him, and it was so the facts are completely different in that he was wanted for this attempted murder. The weapon hadn't been recovered. It was a few days before. He had a criminal history related to weapons. So the police came in hot, if you will, ready, you know, guns drawn. They were ready for a confrontation. And I mean, what's interesting though, and I read through the entire report that DA Kilyn put out, and the one officer who shot, there were 6 officers, and he was the only one who shot, and it was one shot. And of course, the others said, you know, I didn't have a good view. Once he was down, there was no threat anymore. But if it was really a threat, wouldn't there have been more officers shooting? So
very good point.
Right?
Yes, thank you. Great, awesome point. If he really felt that threatened, or other officers felt threatened, there would have been other officers shooting him as well. So he was just very reckless with his firearm when he shot my cousin for no apparent reason, literally over a cell phone. Not only that, there were 6 SWAT officers in total. So there should have been 6 body-worn cameras viewed on the news when they released it. There was only 3 of them. Where are the other 3? Where are the other 3 body cams? Aurora PD is covering this shit up. I'm telling you, they're covering it up.
And of course, as you said in the lead-in, there was no gun discovered. There was no gun in the car. They gave him 7 seconds to comply, and he didn't. And, you know, of course, in his defense, when you have this team of armed men coming at you like that, everybody yelling commands, it can get confusing. And, you know, if you watch the video, he was crouching down. It looked like he may have been unsure what to do. And, of course, the police are going to say, well, he didn't comply, and that's all we want.
And I think it is important, though, just to mention when we're having this conversation, the fact that there was a warrant out for his arrest and he may or may have not been involved in a previous crime. That doesn't negate the fact that he deserved due process and he did not get his chance in court.
Yes, and that is the argument. And I know, you know, the heart goes out to the family because this is hard to see over and over. And then you have to look at the legal standard and you have to say, okay, why did the DA make this decision? Why did the grand jury make this decision? And you know, according to the DA, there wasn't enough. It was a justified shooting under the circumstances, and so they won't prosecute.
Yes, and we know they're not going to leave this here. I believe they'll have their day in civil court, and perhaps we can talk about what that process is at a later time. But thank you. I think this conversation is important, and I'm glad that we were here to have it today. We appreciate you. All right, guys, we will be right back.
Kilyn Lewis! No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
And that's what we mean. I am so disappointed in this outcome. But as Auntie has stated, we was not surprised.
LaRonda Jones says more than 100 days after her son's death, the decision by District Attorney John Kilyn not to charge the officer who shot and killed Kilyn Lewis wasn't a shock. How they found out was.
I didn't get a phone call. My son didn't get a phone call. My daughter didn't get a phone call. Our advocates didn't get a phone call. We had to learn from the media. And I think that is disgraceful and distasteful.
Lewis was unarmed, holding only a phone when officers were attempting to take him into custody. His father, Robert, says he's waited months for answers and transparency from police and investigators about what happened that day, only to be disappointed.
But I stand for my son, and he did not deserve to die like that. Nobody deserves to die like that.
Alexander Landau with the Denver Justice Project says here in Aurora and around Colorado, they've seen officers avoid charges after fatal shootings. He hopes to help the family now through change.
Justice would be Kilyn at home with his family. Justice would be Kilyn growing old with his grandchildren. This family will never get justice, but what we can strive for is accountability mechanisms be put into place, so hopefully we can prevent the perpetuation of this type of brutality in the future.
It is something we can do. It's a lot we can do, and we will do. We will march, and we will stand tall, and we will speak with loud voices till we are heard.
During tonight's City Council meeting, family and community advocates continue to bring these issues forward to the City Council, just as they've been doing for months now. But they feel like the city just isn't listening here, and they hope that anyone feeling frustrated by the inaction in Lewis's death is motivated to vote for someone who will represent them when it's time. Reporting live in Aurora, Rachel Krause, 9 News.
So this request denial that you guys are looking at is the second time I've been denied of Officer Michael Deek's actual photo. They're covering up for him. They don't want him to be exposed. And they're not even really giving a reason. They're just saying, under this statute, we don't have to give you this photograph of him. So, okay. Roy PD, you want to play a game of cover-up? Well, I play the game of exposure. Here he is. The killer cop who murdered my cousin in cold blood, Officer Michael Deek. You piece of shit. We love you, cousin. We miss you. We honor you. And we're going to make sure that you get accountability. We're going to make sure that your name lives on forever. Love you.